Hello guys, good morning. How are we doing today? Today what we're going to be talking about is how to properly use gradients. As requested by you guys, you wanted a video on this, so I'm going to be talking more about using gradients and explaining some areas of applications for gradients. So I'm going to see you soon. Let's get right to it. So one thing you must understand about gradients is that there might not be a very wrong way, there might not be a wrong or right way to use it. But one thing I've come to understand is that depending on where you want to apply these gradients, there might be some guidelines that you need. Alright, so let's just quickly go through Pinterest now and show you how many people have used gradients. Looking at this, we can tell that for different applications, you have different ways gradients are being used. Things like this, the gradients are used as an element for attraction. These are gradients just a bit more complex. They are not created the way the simple way that we know. Understand? The ones we know of are just this normal linear gradients, but these ones are more organic and more controlled. There's a lot of control involved. All right, but on the other hand, there are some other ways to use gradients that are meant to be a little bit less attracting than this. What I mean is that they are not supposed to be the focus of your design. For example, when you use them for backgrounds, like this, for example, they are not meant to actually be the element that draw attention to your design. Here, they are calling for less attention. Now, it would be wrong for you to use the right gradient for the wrong application. The way you are going to use gradients for the focus of your design is different from the way you're going to use gradients for a background for your design. Understand? Now, each of these different applications have their guidelines. All right, though the general guideline is that keep contrast minimal, but depending on where you're going to use it, the level of contrast might differ. So when dealing with gradients, there are a number of parameters that you should pay attention to. Now, these parameters actually determine how your colors will blend together. All right, and these parameters that you can tweak to affect your contrast are the hue, the saturation, and brightness. Now, the hue is how far they are apart. I mean, in terms of the colors. You understand? You have red, orange, yellow, blah 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 blah. I hope you understand that. So those are hues. Now, brightness has to talk about the value level is one, how light is one and how dark is the other. Then saturation has to do with the it has to do with how vibrant a color is. This is a vibrant one, and this is a less vibrant one, or you say a muted version of it. All right, that's how you achieve contrast through saturation. Now, when you're applying gradients, all these things are useful to create the kind of feeling or the kind of gradients for the right application that you're looking for. All right, now creating a gradient can be a combination of all this. I can create a gradient with red and maybe yellow. That's difference in hue. Now I might decide, okay, if I'm not using this bright red, I'm going to use a dark red. That's also contrast what in brightness. My decide, okay, fine, the yellow I'm going to use is going to be less saturated. That's contrast with brightness, hue, and saturation. Let me show you a description of that practically. So to practically explain how you can actually impute all these different ways gradients or different parameters that affect gradients, I'm just going to show you this. So if I want to create a gradient based on just hue difference alone, can just come here, select two different colors. In this case, I select in this case I'll make sure that they have the same level of brightness and the same level of saturation. All right, so I'm just going to be selecting red as 25500. Usually the most saturated and brightest red on one. Then on the other end, I'm going to select yellow, 255 red and 255 green, then 0 for blue. That's the brightest yellow. Now in this case, I only altered the hue. they have the same level of brightness. All right, so this is the gradient. This is still very much cool. All right, now the hue difference doesn't have to be that much. You can look at this color we are looking at here. The difference here is about 60 degrees. All right, the difference in each of these hues is 30 degrees. So these are 1, 2, so that's 60. All right, it doesn't have to be between red and yellow. The hue difference can be as large as between red and green, but depending on the level of contrast you need, one might not be good for some cases. If I can't use this for a background now. All right, I can't use this for a background because the hue difference is too much. Now let me explain why I can't use it for a background now. If I decide that, okay, fine, I need to type a text on it, and that text will either be black or maybe white. Now, okay, this text is large, so you might not have a problem with that. But when you have something smaller, not like a paragraph text now, black seems to go. So this is still great. All right, this is still very much great. But in some other applications, this might not be so great. I won't even recommend this. So let's try white, for example. All right, now this is not so great for white. You know why? Because it looks very, very legible here on the red end, but on the yellow end it's also legible, yes, but you know, people see colors differently. As someone student, people see colors differently. What is legible to us might not be legible to some other ones, especially people that are a bit aged. All right, they still pass for some categories of people that are going to be. Let's say you're sending this for a younger audience. Yeah, this might still be legible, and the font size might be smaller than this. Imagine if the font. There are some times that your font size might be around the 14 end. This is not so legible. All right, this is not so legible. Okay, so most of the time the contrast level of your gradient is depending on what you're going to put on it, so you have to note that. All right, always note that depending on what you want to put on it. Sometimes if you're not putting anything on it, it's not going to be bad. Imagine if I have this level of contrast, I decide that instead of yellow, I decide to go instead of a 60-degree difference, I decided to go down to 180. That's I'll be using red and cyan. That is red and this cyan here. All right, now this is not so much of a great application. Why? Because the contrast is too much. But then an artist can decide to use this, portray a feeling, to portray something. You understand? Whatever gradient you create, no matter how wrong it might look like, it always has a use. But it's just that the use is peculiar to some, but it might not be peculiar to common applications. Understand? Now let me show you an example based on what we have here. Look at these two colors now. This is someone using orange and blue. Now, and if you consider orange and blue on the color wheel, there are two extremes. Look at this blue and this orange. There are two extremes. So one could blindly say, okay, fine, don't use complementary colors or far colors that are apart on the color wheels. Don't use them for gradients. Yes, as much as that would be a good guide, it still depends on how you use them. All right, it still depends on how you use them and what you use them for. All right, so but I will not stray too far away from the common application, which is usually for backgrounds and for text fields. Now this might not be great for text field now. All right, because in the middle you have this this dull color in the middle, so that's what makes it actually weird. The dull color in the middle makes it weird, so you want to avoid that. Rather, what I suggested in the slides last week, I think, was that if this composite that you must have these two colors, what you just do is that put something else in the middle that is in between them. So take a look at red and cyan. What color is in between them that you think is not too far apart from red and it's not too far apart from cyan? It could be one, it could be two colors. I can try to use this green here, I can try to use yellow and this green here. All right, but let's decide to use one for a start. One and two might not do the job, so it appears that we have to use more than one. So, but this is also a better feel than the previous one. The center, the blend is less as mute without it. Look at it without it now. Look at this place. You have this muteness here, this dullness here rather. Okay, so but adding this takes that away, and you can see the graduation is less smooth. So if you feel that that is still not satisfactory, you can go forward and select another green, that's this one, or that will be closer to cyan. Then select yellow. So you have a better graduation here, you have a better blend here, you have less, because the colors that are blending into each other will mix up in the middle, understand? So that mix up should not be dull, especially when you're dealing with vibrant colors. It will be weird when you have a lot of vibrance here, then in the middle you have dullness, understand? So at the same time, this might be great for a text field, might not still be great for a background or something that's going to carry details. Can you see that on this green it seems like it's legible, on this orange it seems like, but look at this yellow end, it's less legible. That's what, so this might not be great, it might not be so great for some backgrounds. Now imagine this text was going to be very much large. Yeah, imagine it's actually going to be great. Imagine it is as big as this. Still, this yellow end is still not so great, but it still does the job because it's legible. So you have to understand that gradients are as good as what you want to use them for. All right, they are as good as what you want to use them for. So now that's about hue differences, right? So let's move on to difference in brightness level. So when dealing with a contrast between the colors in terms of brightness level, that means you're leaving the saturation constant and you're also leaving the hue constant. So you only have this affecting the the brightness values. All right, so I'm going to just take these two out. Since the hue is going to be constant and saturation is going to be constant, I think we just have to deal with only two colors. We don't need 4 colors since they are going to be the same hue. So let's maintain red. I think we are using the brightest red already. Now imagine we now decide to use a less bright red. Let's use this dark one now. Now this is still a gradient, but they are the same color, they have the same hue, but just different brightness levels. This is bright, but this is dark. Understand? This gives us a seamless and a smooth graduation. Things like this are very great when you want to create less contrast, especially when you're using in your backgrounds. All right, for let's say your flyer design, especially for your flyer design, or even your logo design, because some people use gradients for logo designs. Now if I take this down, this font size down to 14, this is still very small, but depending on who is going to be reading this, he will have less problem reading it. I mean, if he can read this, depending on how young he is anyways, he will have less problem with the colors disturbing him, because the colors are not calling for too much attention as compared to what he needs to read. All right, but I won't recommend you using this font size, but I'm just using this for an example. Least fonts, if you're dealing with screens, I think the least font size you should actually go to is 18. That should be like the least 18. All right, it's not a fixed rule. That's just a guideline. We might want to go lower than that depending on what you're doing. All right, but anything when you start getting to like 12, it becomes less legible, so you might want to do that. But when you're dealing with print, of course you can go as low as even 4 points or 6. All right, but just leave that out of this topic. Let's try something else apart from the red that we have been using, so you know that let's try maybe the bright green and the dark green. All right, save the same feeling. One side is bright, one side is dark. And you have less disturbance in your background. The person, whatever you have on this text, you on this background will have the attention it needs, because the background is as uniform as possible. There's nothing special about the background. It's just simple, straightforward. There's nothing that is going to distract you from what you need to read. All right, so that's why they are called backgrounds. They don't need to be in the spotlight. All right, one mistake that people make with their backgrounds are they want the background to shout out, and that is not so great. All right, your background should not shout out what is on the background, rather should be what should call for attention. Do you understand? So let's move to the next point. We are going to be tampering with the contrast for the saturation for contrast. For this, let's just go back to what we have here. We're going to keep the brightness the same, and we're also going to keep the hue the same. So we're just going to change the saturation levels. All right, so I think we can use this is one of the greens that was washed out, so we can use this. Okay, so you can see that this is also still a gradient. This is also still a gradient. But of course, the color that we have right now is not the right color. You can just adjust the gradient so it doesn't look too good. Of course, white might not be the best application on this. All right, so I want to come and change it. All right, I think this looks better. All right, this looks better. So really, that's just how to create gradients using these various parameters, and you can decide, okay, fine, I want to twist all these things. You don't want to restrict yourself to only saturation and only brightness or only contrast. You want to use all three together, or maybe a combination of two. So usually I use a combination of two or even the three of them. Most times if I'm using a combination of two, I just make sure the hue is constant, so I just tweak the brightness and the contrast level. Now you have this color picker. Let's say, first of all, let's say we want to keep the hue constant, right? What I do is that I just pick a hue. Let's say I select one color. I select one color. Let's say I select this one. Now usually it's not so great to select colors that are too much to the extreme. I mean, that have extreme saturation. It's not always good, especially when you're designing for screen. It's even from print as well. They are too vibrant and it might not be so friendly on the eye. Now what I do is that when I create this, if I want a darker combination, I mean, I want something that we combine with, I want another color that will combine with it, but that will be darker. What I do is that if these colors are this brightness level, 83% saturated, 85% bright, if I want to select a darker shade that will act as the second color in the gradient, I might reduce the saturation without affecting reduce the brightness without affecting the saturation, or I reduce the brightness and increase the saturation. All right, darker values, to me, I tend to choose them more saturated than brighter values. All right, I really don't have a great way to explain them, but the only thing I can tell is that shadows are usually more saturated, especially when they are going very dark. Understand? Lighter shadows might not be so saturated, but very dark ones usually tend to go to the saturated end. But the way I select them, once I select one here, if I want a brighter version, I go diagonally towards the left. That is, I go up and to the side. All right, so that's like that. Right, that's how I select my colors. So I'm going to still show you that on Photoshop right now. So I'm just going to go straight into its gradients. All right, so just select this color. Let's make sure that they are 100% transparent. So let's say I'm dealing with blue. I select the base one, maybe like that will be slightly dark and saturated. Okay, you can see my values here. Then I select the next one. Let's say I want a brighter variant. All right, maybe I just select this so I know where the last one was. Then I know that I need a brighter variant. So instead of, I might decide, okay, but I'm not going to change the saturation. I'll just fix the brightness straight away. All right, I can take it very high, depending on what I want. All right, But I can still go as far as, instead of maybe just reduce saturation too. Alright, it depends on the feel you want. It doesn't have to be too much. Alright, and you can decide to, instead of reducing the saturation, you can increase it. But usually the combo is not always great. Based on what I've discovered, the combo is not always great. So usually I like my brighter values to be less saturated than my dark values. Alright, so that's when you want to stay within the same hue. But let's say you're not doing that. Now I select blue at the particular saturation level. Right, now I need something else. I can go as far as increasing this by 30 degrees. Let's say just put it by 64. It goes to purple. Alright, I can add on that 30 to make it 60-degree difference. Alright, so now they are the same level of brightness and the same level of saturation. I can decide, okay, let me take this a bit brighter and take it less saturated. Alright, this is how I create gradients. This is to me, I feel this is very much still seamless than when you have blue, then you now have extreme yellow on it. Now what you're trying to avoid is this. Let me show it to you. Whenever you're creating your gradients, what you're trying to avoid is this point. Sorry. What you're trying to avoid is this point of muteness. Right, that is what you are trying to avoid. You can see the color is very, very great here. It's very, very vibrant and great here. But look at the middle, it's not so great. You understand? That's what you're trying to avoid whenever you're dealing with gradients. All right. So that explains how much you can actually go when you want to create your gradients. But as like I said before, there's no wrong way. It's just that the application might be wrong. Do you understand? The application might be wrong. But generally, what you are staying away from is this muteness, this dullness in the center. Right? It kills the vibe. You'll be coming here with a very bright and vibrant vibe. You're also coming from here with a bright and vibrant vibe. Then you come here, you now find something very, very dull. No. So you need to stay away from that. If at all you have to put extreme colors in your gradient, then make sure that they gradually get there. So what I'll do is that instead of moving drastically from blue drastically to orange, what I do is I take it step by step. First of all, maybe I come to cyan, select cyan there. Then the next one, then I come to green because that's the next color. Alright, so when you have something like this, you have less, though I will not expect this to be your background. I won't expect this to be your background, but this could be for your text, your title text. It might not be all your text. It should not be all your text. You just need it for one thing. All right, and this also depends on what you are using it for. If you are using it for like a disco party kind of flyer or something that is youthful and vibrant, yes, you might use a lot of colors like this. But if you are dealing with something corporate, you might not want to use it for your title text, yes, because it will come off as too playful and unserious. All right, so like I said, just know what you want to do, the feeling you want to achieve, and use the level of freedom each of them calls for. Do you understand? All right, but generally creating gradients depends on how you affect the contrast parameters. That is the hue. I'm going to open that for you. The hue values, saturation values, brightness value, or lightness value. You understand? So generally that is it for. I'm sure by now you know how to create these gradients. Now, like I actually said earlier, that the areas where you apply these gradients also matters in you choosing the kind of gradients you need to create. Now, like I said, you can create. I'm sure you can create all these gradients. You can create all these gradients, I'm quite sure. If you can't, let me know, but I'm sure you can already. Alright, these are just colors from what you have already done before. Alright, so like I said, when you're going for backgrounds, now you want to stay minimal. You want to keep the contrast very little, meaning that The difference in hue, if at all you want to create different hues like this one, should be minimal. This is from purple to I think that should be in this cyan or blue side. So that is from this purple here to somewhere around here. All right, you can see this is purple. Okay, I think it should be something. It's very close to the blue. So that's difference is actually maximum. I think that should be like 60 degrees different. This is like 225 to something around 278. If you calculate, it's there about maybe between 50 and 60 degrees. All right. So you want to keep for seamless or simple or minimal backgrounds. You want to keep the difference very, very tiny and use related colors. What I mean by related colors now, red and green are like two opposite colors. Green is on the cool end, red is on the hot end, on the warm end. So most of the time those colors don't combine great. So if at all you want to put them there, then you have to put some other colors in between to give you a smoother gradation like what we have here. So this could be great for your background, this could be for your text, and this could be appropriate for corporate use and even some other social and hippie styles. You understand? But you can decide to go out of hand and use something more colorful, like having multiple colors, for example. Right? Can use this, and I think after yellow we have, I think that is all between green and yellow, between red and green rather. Let's check that out. Between red and green, this is red and this is green, so I think we only have yellow as a hue there. All right, so you can have multiple this, but this is applicable for maybe something more an event or a business or an application that requires something very much vibrant and playful, so that you can use multiple colors, because it's not a great idea when you're using multiple colors. Sometimes multiple colors, especially vibrant ones, appear to be very, very playful. You can't use that for corporate settings. You can't use that for something that is official, collected, and that wants to look at someone that look like a personality that is confident and bold or dependable. All right, so you want to keep the right feeling for the right application. All right, so this is not wrong, you just have to understand how to apply them. All right, like I said, this is not so great for corporate. It might be good for maybe something party like, or something children like, or something, just something vibrant and playful anyways. You understand? So but if you want to keep it less, then you might want to drop down a number of colors first, then close up the hues. Red and yellow might be great, but you can still go down a bit, maybe using red instead of yellow, just goes to orange. Just go to orange. I think, or you can just stay with orange and yellow, because some people dread red for some reason, I don't know. Yep. Okay, you have a better, depends, as I said, it depends on the feeling that you want to achieve, but note that these are your 3 parameters to adjust your gradients to give you the best gradients you can create. Then you can try to go extra mile by learning to create gradients like this that are used for exceptional applications. Understand? This, I'll still call this a gradient. It's not the regular gradients that we know, but this is more controlled and natural. This is more, it's not automatically created, this is more organic. All right, I think this should not be too difficult to do. Actually, this should not be too difficult to do, but it's something that is achievable. All right, like I said, all these things have the application. Now it might not be a great idea in some cases to use orange and blue for gradients, but like I always said, it depends on what you're using it for and how you use it. The way this gradient was created is not the same way this one was created. These ones are linear and they blend into each other directly, but you can see this one is more controlled. There are places where it blends and there are places where it's sharp. You understand? It has a controlled method of approach. So you understand? So you have to understand, like I would say, emphasize, know what you want to create, and know the right feeling. That once you know the right feeling that will follow suit, then create something that fits it. For something corporate, you want to keep your hue levels, hue contrast minimal as possible. You understand? The other values could also be should also be minimal. All right. But if you're looking for something very much vibrant, you can go with multiple hues depending on the application. Still, the kind of hues you're going to use for because I said multiple hues doesn't mean you should go and use like 10 different hues in a gradient. All right, especially when you're dealing with backgrounds. All right, for your backgrounds, you want to keep the hue as minimal as possible, except you're looking to create something artistic, something like this, although not multiple hues, or something like this. These are not, you can find pink, you can find yellow, you can find cyan there. This one, a lot of them are also there. So it all really depends on what you want to do. But what you should take away from this is that for backgrounds, keep it as minimal as possible. All right. For text effects, you can also go straight into some of this a bit, but it all depends on the project type. Who is the project for? All right. Is it a corporate setting? You understand? Are people looking for something playful, or are people looking for something that will not call for too much attention and will not seem as unserious? All right. So I believe you have learned something here from today. If you have questions still on this topic, do let me know. And thanks for joining me here today.